Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. My name is Anna, and I am happy to be here with you today. This podcast is for beginners, so we will use simple English and speak slowly. Today, our topic is self-study. Self-study means learning by yourself, without a teacher in the room. Many people study alone at home or in a quiet place. It can be very useful and flexible. In this episode, we will talk about how we study by ourselves and share simple ideas. I am here with my friend Mark, and we will talk together. I hope you enjoy listening.
Hi everyone, I am Mark. Thank you, Anna, for the introduction. I am excited to talk about self-study today. It is a very helpful skill, especially for learning languages or new subjects. Many people do not always have a teacher, so they study alone. In this podcast, we will use easy English so you can understand clearly. We will share our habits, ideas, and tips for self-study. I hope this conversation helps you learn English and also improve your own study methods. Let's enjoy learning together.
Mark, I think self-study is very important today. Many people learn online or at home. For me, self-study gives me freedom. I can choose what I want to learn and when I want to study. But sometimes it is also difficult because I need to stay focused by myself. There is no teacher to guide me all the time. So I think it is important to have good habits. What do you think about self-study, Mark?
Yes, Anna, I agree with you. Self-study is very useful, but it needs discipline. For me, it is a good way to learn at my own speed. If something is easy, I move fast. If something is difficult, I take more time. I also like that I can choose my own materials, like videos or books. But sometimes I feel lazy, and it is hard to continue. So I think motivation is very important when we study alone.
That is a good point, Mark. Motivation is very important. I also think having a goal helps a lot. When I have a clear goal, like learning new words or finishing a lesson, I feel more focused. Without a goal, I may feel lost. Self-study needs planning and direction. I hope our listeners can think about their own goals while listening to us.
Yes, Anna, goals give us direction. I also think time management is important. When we study alone, we need to decide when to study and how long. If we do not plan our time, we may not study at all. So I try to make a simple schedule. It helps me stay on track.
I agree, Mark. A schedule can help a lot. I also think self-study can be fun. We can choose topics we like. For example, I like learning English through videos and songs. It makes learning interesting. When learning is fun, it is easier to continue.
That is true, Anna. Enjoying the process is important. If we like what we learn, we will study more. I also think self-study helps us become independent. We learn how to solve problems by ourselves. This is a very useful skill in life.
Yes, Mark. Independence is very important. Self-study teaches us to take responsibility for our learning. We cannot wait for someone else. We need to take action. This can make us stronger learners.
I agree, Anna. It also builds confidence. When we learn something by ourselves, we feel proud. It shows that we can do it. This feeling is very motivating.
That is a great point, Mark. Feeling proud of our progress is very important. Even small progress is good. I think self-study is a journey, and we learn step by step.
Yes, Anna, step by step is the best way. We should not rush. Learning takes time, and that is okay.
Thank you, Mark. I think we had a great introduction to our topic. We talked about what self-study is and why it is important. I hope our listeners are ready to learn more.
Yes, Anna, this was a great start. Dear listeners, thank you for listening. Now we will move to part 1, where we will talk about simple self-study habits. Let's continue together.
Let's start part 1 and talk about simple self-study habits. For me, one important habit is having a fixed study time. I try to study at the same time every day. This helps me build a routine. When the time comes, I feel ready to study. Another habit is starting with small tasks. I do not try to study too much at once. For example, I learn a few new words or read a short text. This feels easy and helps me continue. I think small and regular study is better than long and irregular study.
That is a great habit, Anna. For me, another important habit is having a clean and quiet place to study. When my space is clean, I can focus better. I also try to remove distractions. For example, I turn off my phone or put it away. This helps me stay focused on my work. I also prepare my materials before I start. This saves time and helps me begin quickly. I think a good study environment is very important for self-study.
Yes, Mark, the environment is very important. Another habit I have is making a simple plan before I study. I decide what I will learn that day. For example, I may choose to practice speaking or review grammar. When I have a plan, I feel more organized. I also feel happy when I finish my plan. It gives me a sense of success. I think planning helps us use our time better and stay focused.
I agree, Anna. Planning is very useful. Another habit I follow is reviewing what I learned. After I study something new, I go back and check it again. This helps me remember better. For example, if I learn new words, I review them the next day. Repetition is very important in learning. It helps us keep information in our memory for a long time.
That is a great idea, Mark. Reviewing is very helpful. Another habit I have is speaking out loud. When I learn English, I try to say words and sentences aloud. This helps me improve my pronunciation. It also makes me more confident. Even if I am alone, I practice speaking. I think this is a simple but powerful habit for language learning.
Yes, Anna, speaking out loud is very effective. Another habit I use is using different materials. For example, I watch videos, read books, and listen to audio. This makes learning more interesting. It also helps me learn in different ways. Sometimes I feel bored with one method, so I change it. Variety can help us stay motivated and enjoy studying more.
I agree, Mark. Using different materials is fun. Another habit I try is setting small goals for each study session. For example, I decide to learn 5 new words or complete one lesson. When I reach my goal, I feel good. It gives me motivation to continue. Small goals are easy to achieve and help us build confidence.
That is a very good habit, Anna. Another thing I do is take short breaks. Studying for a long time can be tiring, so I study for a short time and then rest for a few minutes. This helps me stay fresh and focused. I think breaks are important for effective learning.
Yes, Mark, breaks are very important. Another habit I have is writing notes. When I write, I can remember things better. I write important words, ideas, and examples. Later, I can review my notes again. This helps me review easily. Writing is a simple way to support learning.
I agree, Anna. Writing helps a lot. Another habit I try is staying consistent. I study a little every day, even if I am busy. It is better to study for a short time every day than a long time once a week. Consistency helps build strong habits and steady progress.
That is very true, Mark. Consistency is key. I think we shared many simple and useful habits. These habits are easy to follow and can help anyone improve their self-study.
Yes, Anna, this was a great discussion. I hope our listeners found these habits helpful. Now we are ready to move to part 2, where we will talk about tools and methods for self-study. Let's continue together.
Now, let's talk about tools and methods for self-study. For me, one useful tool is a notebook. I write new words, simple sentences, and important ideas. Writing helps me remember better. I also like to use flashcards. I write a word on one side and the meaning on the other side. Then I review them again and again. This is a simple way to learn vocabulary. I think we do not need many tools. Even simple things like paper and a pen can help us study well.
That is a great point, Anna. Simple tools can be very powerful. For me, I like to use my phone for learning. There are many apps for studying languages or other subjects. I use apps to practice words, listen to audio, and do small quizzes. It is very convenient because I can study anywhere. For example, I can study on the bus or during a break. Technology can make self-study easier and more flexible.
Yes, Mark. Apps are very useful. Another method I use is watching videos. I watch simple English videos and try to understand them. Sometimes I watch the same video again to learn more. I also try to repeat what I hear. This helps me improve my listening and speaking. Videos make learning more interesting and fun. I think this is a good method for beginners.
I agree, Anna. Videos are very helpful. Another method I use is reading simple texts. I read short stories, articles, or dialogues. When I find new words, I check the meaning and write them down. Reading helps me understand sentence structure and improve my vocabulary. I try to read a little every day. It is a simple way to improve step by step.
That is a great method, Mark. I also like listening practice. I listen to audio, podcasts, or simple conversations. At first, I do not understand everything, but I keep listening. Over time, it becomes easier. Listening helps me get used to the sound of the language. I think it is important to listen often when we study by ourselves.
Yes, Anna, listening is very important. Another tool I use is online dictionaries. When I do not know a word, I quickly check the meaning. Some dictionaries also have pronunciation, so I can hear the correct sound. This helps me learn faster. It is a simple but very useful tool.
I agree, Mark. Dictionaries are very helpful. Another method I use is practicing speaking with myself. I try to make simple sentences and talk about my day. For example, I say, "Today I study English," or "I eat lunch at home." This helps me practice speaking even when I am alone. It may feel strange, but it works.
That is a great idea, Anna. Speaking alone is good practice. Another method I use is setting a timer. I study for a fixed time, like 20 minutes. When the time is over, I take a break. This helps me stay focused. It also makes studying feel easier because I know it will not be too long.
Yes, Mark, using a timer is very helpful. Another tool I use is simple online courses. There are many free lessons on the internet. I follow the lessons step by step. It feels like having a teacher. This helps me stay organized and learn in a clear way.
I agree, Anna. Online courses are very useful. Another method I use is repeating and practicing again. Learning once is not enough. I try to review and practice many times. This helps me remember better. Repetition is a key part of learning.
That is very true, Mark. Repetition helps us remember. I think we shared many useful tools and methods. They are simple and easy to use for beginners.
Yes, Anna, this was a great discussion. I hope our listeners can try these tools and methods in their self-study. Now we are ready to move to part 3, where we will talk about challenges and how to overcome them. Let's continue together.
Now let's talk about challenges in self-study. For me, one big challenge is staying motivated. When I study alone, sometimes I feel bored or tired. There is no teacher to push me, so it is easy to stop. To solve this, I try to remember my goal. For example, I want to speak English better. This helps me continue. I also try to make my study fun by using videos or games. I think motivation can change, so we need simple ways to keep going every day.
I understand that, Anna. Motivation is not always strong. Another challenge for me is feeling lazy. Sometimes I plan to study, but I do not start. To fix this, I try to begin with a very small task. For example, I open my book or learn one word. After I start, it becomes easier to continue. I think starting is the hardest part. If we can start, we can do more. This simple idea helps me study even on difficult days.
Yes, Mark, starting is very important. Another challenge for me is distractions. When I study, I sometimes check my phone or think about other things. This breaks my focus. To solve this, I put my phone away and choose a quiet place. I also study for a short time, like 20 minutes, so I can focus better. I think controlling distractions is very important for good self-study.
That is a great solution, Anna. Distractions are a big problem for many people. Another challenge is not understanding something. When I study alone, I cannot always ask a teacher. This can feel difficult. To solve this, I use the internet, books, or videos to find answers. I also try to be patient and not give up. Learning takes time, and it is okay not to understand everything at once.
I agree, Mark. Being patient is very important. Another challenge is forgetting what I learn. Sometimes I study something, but I forget it later. To fix this, I review my notes and practice again. Repetition helps me remember better. I think reviewing is a very important part of self-study.
Yes, Anna, reviewing is key. Another challenge for me is not having a clear plan. If I do not know what to study, I feel lost. So I try to make a simple plan before I start. This helps me stay organized and focused. A clear plan makes studying easier and more effective.
That is a very good point, Mark. Planning helps a lot. Another challenge is feeling alone. When we study by ourselves, we may feel lonely. To solve this, I sometimes study with friends online or share my progress with them. This makes me feel supported. I think it is good to connect with others, even in self-study.
I agree, Anna. Support is important. Another challenge is giving up too quickly. Sometimes people try self-study for a short time and then stop. But learning needs time. I try to remind myself to be patient and continue. Even small progress is good. Consistency is more important than speed.
Yes, Mark, consistency is very important. Another challenge is feeling stressed. When I think I must learn a lot, I feel pressure. So I try to keep my goals small and simple. This helps me feel relaxed and enjoy learning more.
That is a great idea, Anna. Keeping things simple is helpful. Another challenge is not believing in yourself. If we think we cannot learn, it is hard to continue. So I try to believe that I can improve step by step. Confidence grows with practice.
Another problem for me is feeling bored. Sometimes I study the same thing again and again, and it is not interesting. When I feel bored, I lose focus. To solve this, I try to change my study method. For example, I watch a video instead of reading, or I play a simple learning game. This makes study more fun. I think it is important to keep learning interesting so we can continue for a long time.
I understand that, Anna. Boredom is very common. Another challenge for me is not seeing progress. Sometimes I study a lot, but I feel like I am not improving. This can make me feel sad. To fix this, I try to look at small progress. For example, I can understand more words than before. I can make simple sentences now. These small changes are important. I think we should notice our progress even if it is slow. It helps us stay motivated.
Yes, Mark, noticing progress is very important. Another challenge is studying too much at once. Sometimes I feel I must study for many hours, but then I get tired and stop. Now I try to study for a short time and take breaks. This helps me keep my energy. I think balance is very important. We should not push too hard. Learning should be steady and comfortable.
That is a great point, Anna. Balance is very important. Another challenge for me is not forgetting to review. Sometimes I learn new things, but I do not go back to them. Then I forget. To solve this, I make time for review every week. I check my notes and practice again. This helps me remember better. I think review is just as important as learning new things.
I agree, Mark. Review is very helpful. Another challenge is feeling shy to speak. Even when I study alone, I feel shy to speak English, but I try to practice anyway. I speak slowly and do not worry about mistakes. This helps me improve. I think we should not be afraid of mistakes. They are part of learning.
Yes, Anna, that is very true. Another challenge is not having a clear reason to study. If we do not know why we study, it is hard to continue. So I try to remind myself of my goal. For example, I want to travel and speak English. This gives me a reason to study. Having a clear reason helps us stay focused.
That is a very good idea, Mark. Having a reason is important. Another challenge is comparing with others. Sometimes I see other learners doing very well, and I feel not good enough. But now I try to focus on my own journey. Everyone learns at a different speed. I just try to improve step by step. This helps me stay positive.
I agree, Anna. Comparing can make us feel bad. Another challenge is stopping after a short time. Some people start self-study with energy, but then they stop. I try to continue even if I study only a little. Doing something small is better than doing nothing. This helps me build a strong habit.
Yes, Mark, small steps are very important. I think we talked about many challenges and solutions now. Self-study can be difficult, but we can find simple ways to continue. I hope our listeners feel more confident and ready to try.
Yes, Anna, this was a great continuation. We shared many real problems and easy solutions. I hope our listeners learned something useful. Now we are ready to move to the ending and finish our podcast. Thank you for staying with us.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to our podcast today. We talked about self-study and shared many simple ideas, tools, and challenges. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and found it easy to understand. Remember, self-study is a great way to learn at your own speed. You do not need to be perfect. Just start small and keep going every day. Try different methods and find what works for you. Thank you, Mark, for this great talk. I really enjoyed it. I hope our listeners will join us again next time. Take care and goodbye.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you to all our listeners. It was great to talk about self-study with you today. I hope this podcast helped you learn simple English and also gave you ideas for your own study. Remember to stay consistent, be patient, and believe in yourself. Learning takes time, but you can improve step by step. I also enjoyed our conversation very much, Anna. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a wonderful day, and we hope to see you again in our next episode. Goodbye.